Hello and welcome to Magical Travel Adventure. I am Lauren, your host, and I have everyone here today. Hold on a second. I'm going live on two spots, so I can't do that. So today I have with me Mary in the top, Megan in the bottom, and Meredith in the bottom. And the four of us are all travel agents with Carry On the Magic. And we recently all also went on a Starcruiser voyage that was hosted by Disney. So we all got to go and share a room and talk about how wonderful everything was. So, and Sarah says hello.
Hey, Sarah.
So, what we're going to do again, our information is below. How to make book appointments with us is all below in the description, so you can book with either of us after you hear us all talk about it. We'll kind of discuss a little bit about what our role is in Starcruiser, like our strong feelings about Starcruiser, and so that should help you because we all definitely have all different personalities, and I will say creative levels of engagement in Starcruiser. So, all right. So, we want to start off with talking about something that surprised us because for three of us, this was a brand new experience, and one of us got to do it for their second time. And I think that that kind of brings a new element. So, Mary, I'm going to start with you. What surprised you the most about Starcruiser?
We've all talked about how immersive it was, and I think that's the only word I can use for it. All the cast members, from wait staff to the actors, they were all so involved. You felt like everyone was a part of the story, and you could, I'm thinking of you, Meredith, Harmon, you could really develop your relationship with the cast members, and it was spectacular. Absolutely. So that's what it was for me. Just the relationships you formed with these cast members.
And now, Mary, you were on a Starcruiser before it really opened.
I was lucky enough to get to do a soft opening back in January, and they were trying to work out the kinks at that time. It was lovely. We still were able to interact with the cast members. However, due to, it's hard to talk about the glitches because they were working out the system. Due to the system, it wasn't quite the same. So I honestly feel like I'm more with you and Megan, that it was like a first time. The meals were not, we had that before. Some of the training we got to do, you know, the lightsaber training, the bridge training, we got to do that. But as far as the more immersive stuff, like when you went on Batu, that was not working when I was there. So while some of it I had done before and it was great to do it again, I would go back for a third time. A lot of it was new. I felt more like you and Megan at this point. I think Meredith was our expert because she really had gotten to do all of it before.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Megan, you are up. What surprised you the most about this experience?
I think how much the data pad played a part in the story. So for everyone that doesn't know, all of the characters interact with you through your cell phone, through the Disney Play app. And at one point on the second day, we were at lunch and the ship asked if we were going back to Batu. And Meredith and I looked at each other and we're like, it has like the question and then you pick yes or no. And we were like, yeah, let's do this. And for Meredith, she didn't do that the first time. So for me, running back to Batu, having a great time, taking some photos, just like interacting with some of the cast members and then going back on the ship, I didn't realize that the data pad was going to kind of like send us down a course like that.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And this is obviously your first time on Starcruiser.
It was my first time. And as a Star Wars fan, I really wanted to like hold that experience like kind of above everything else. So I didn't watch any videos. Oh, excuse me. Any videos or any like spoilers beyond what like kind of came through my Instagram feed and TikTok, but like I didn't search out like any spoilers for it. So I went in kind of fresh minded about the whole experience.
Right. And I will say we almost had like no warning that we were going. So we didn't
For
we
like
had
2
like
weeks.
yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So don't ever recommend that either. So, and I should have started with this. So Megan, if you had to rate yourself, 1 being like a non-Star Wars fan and 10 being like the most Star Wars fan you could be, where would you fall on that category? An 11?
That's our mantle. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ezra's sitting next to him. The dark saber's up there. There's an entire plethora of lightsabers in an umbrella stand over there. The Death Star is on. So I would say like 100 out of 10.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. Mary, I didn't even ask you. So from 1 to 10, what is your Star Wars?
Oh, you know, I was old school Star Wars, you know, the beginning with Luke and Han Solo and Princess Leia. So I was more old school. I had watched some of the newer shows like Mandalorian and stuff like that. But I would say maybe a 7, just because I'm not as versed in the in all the new stuff. So
Okay.
yeah,
Good.
old school.
All right, Meredith, we're on to you. Where, spoiler alert, Meredith is the one that's been on 2 full times now. So.
Yes, and I can't wait to go back a third. I'm counting down the days.
Yes. So what surprised you the most about returning on a voyage?
It's so like none of the like necessarily story elements surprised me because I knew all of that. It was still very exciting and I was anxiously awaiting for everything to unfold. But I think being able to truly have a completely new experience. It was like completely different than my first time. When I went back in March on the second voyage, I was probably the lowest level of Star Wars nerd. I would still rank myself as a 10. But out of my whole group, like I have a video of us sitting in the lobby and one of my friends just like spewing off super detailed Star Wars trivia questions and me not knowing any of the answers. Like, but this time I was surprised at my ability to like form completely new experiences, even though I had already been on it before.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I would say that you definitely helped us. You were like our guide. And as my Star Wars fandom is probably at like a 3, as I had only known the 3 original movies before going on. And then Meredith was like, you should probably watch a few of these before we go, which I watched
like
in
watch speed watch the last 3 movies and you should at least kind of know what's going on.
Yes, and let me tell you, Rise of the Resistance makes way more sense now too.
Good.
So I've ridden that ride like so many times too. So and I think one of the things that really surprised me is that I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, and yet I truly enjoyed this experience. Like there wasn't any part of it like there's no part where I was like, oh, I couldn't partake because I didn't understand the Star Wars stuff. Like you can pick it up really fast and like you can like see what other people are doing and you're like, oh, okay, I'll try that or something like that. I mean, we had Meredith, so like I didn't need to do that as much.
But you still did it like you did a really good job in the fact that you ended up on the nostalgia on like the Jedi path and you were on a very key story element and you still enjoyed that and knew what was going on like that.
Yeah,
that was impressive.
Right. And I will say it kind of surprised me that we all didn't have like this, even though Meredith was helping us, we all didn't have the same path all the time. We weren't always all doing the same thing. We were together well, I don't know. More than not, we were together, but we still had like separate things that we were doing throughout the time that we were there.
I think that touches upon the data pad too, because like I know I asked Meredith a few times, like, oh, what did you put for this? Because I knew that it was gonna be like a deviate. Like we were going the same way, and if we answered the questions differently, like that was gonna be like, all right, we're not seeing each other again. Like we're off on our own ways. So I think that like helped too, that we were all conscious of what everyone else was doing. But then, you know, some facts we were like, no, I'm gonna go this way.
Yeah. And I think after like a few tries on the data pad, you could kind of figure that out.
Yes.
Because I think by day 2, I was like picking my own stuff without being like, Meredith, what do I do? Like, because I can read.
Yeah, you can figure it out, and then like you can also kind of not necessarily backtrack your way, but you can worm your way back. You can like warm back up to some of the cast members and characters if you are like, oh no, I didn't mean to press that button or give that response, or maybe you want to flip sides. It's easy enough to do that once you figure it out.
Very good. All right. So I know a lot of questions we get are about the food. So when we're talking about food, let me tell you, we were a very special table. It was like, okay, it's that table. But I think that will help people if you have questions about food. So I'm going to do the same thing, and we're just going to talk one at a time. So Mary, let's talk about, or maybe, you know what, Megan, I'm going to have you start. And I'm going to,
Because I'm the simplest.
No, because I think that you capture it the best. Because a lot of times at Disney, if you call ahead and say like, I have a food allergy, you know, you don't have to do that for specific to Starcruiser. Like they will call the main person on the reservation to ask you those things like 2 weeks, a week before it happens. But they also say when you get there to talk to the chef. So I remember when we had our own group meetings before we went, we were all like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is go talk to the chef. And that is what we did. So Megan, why don't you walk us through like what that experience was like?
Okay. So I'm a little nosy about like how to help cast members. So when we went in, I wanted to make sure that we were giving the information that was like most important to least important. So there were some severe allergies at our table, and then myself, I'm just plant-based, so it's not like an allergy, it's just a preference. And at Disney specifically, they always have an option, and I just go with that option, like to order. So when we went to talk to the chef, we made sure that the severe allergy talked first. He wrote it down, noted who it was, what it was, and how best they could serve that allergy. Then we kind of went down to each of us with our own allergies, and they wrote it down on our own special piece of paper where the chef, I'm sure, shared that information with the servers, with the other cast members that were going to interact with us. And it seemed to work out wonderfully for each of us in our own way. I, at one point, was able to get plain pasta with oil and salt. I know Meredith asked for celery and carrots, and they somehow in space found celery and carrots for her.
It was wonderful.
I don't know
loved it.
if everyone else wants to talk about what their preferences and allergies were.
Yeah, Mary, do you want to talk about yours?
Sure. I have a bizarre nut allergy. Everything is fine with the exception of pine nuts, but they were still very cautious, and all our food came out with a little stick in it that says allergy. So you know that they've really looked at it. And even though I don't have a problem with other nuts, they made sure that nuts were not included in any of our meals. And a lot of the food comes out more like family service where you would share. But due to the different allergies, and I'll let Meredith and Lauren talk about theirs later, due to our allergies, they would like separate us and say, okay, this is just for you, or you two can share this and you two can share that. And they really had it set up that no matter what your preference was, you could deal with it. And other than nuts, I'm fine with everything. And I have to say, I loved everything that we were served. I felt that way both when I went for the soft opening and now that the cuisine is wonderful. I know some people, get a little weirded out by the pink or green milk. Who was it that liked pink milk or the blue milk? Who was team
Oh,
blue
I'm a
milk?
blue milk fan.
Yeah, you guys are
Oh,
team blue
forever.
milk.
I like
Always.
blue milk more than green milk. Green milk
Yeah.
was a little fruity for me.
And I'm team blue shrimp. I'm the
Horrible.
only one that ate the shrimp. And I love it. So, yeah, I totally loved it, and I appreciated the care they took with each of our preferences and or allergies. So
Mhm.
that's where I come from on the food.
All right, Meredith, it's your
Okay,
turn.
my favorite joke is that normally I don't travel or dine with other people who have allergies or preferences. So normally my joke is, yeah, I just took everybody's allergies and preferences and I'm just holding on to that for everyone. But I couldn't make that joke this time, so it's okay. But I am a plant-based, gluten-free, and no tomatoes or chocolate. And so that normally causes a lot of issues with trying to piecemeal sides together. I have never been more satisfied with a dining experience. And the second time was even better than the first time. I didn't think it was possible to get better, but it did. For the blue shrimp that everybody talks about, I think I might have just gotten like a side salad or something a little bit more simple when I went in March. This time they actually brought out like my own little plant-based blue shrimp platter. It had the dry ice and like a blue underlight and everything, but it ended up being very similar to like a falafel. It was just a plant-based chickpea protein sort of meatball, and it was incredible. That's definitely the one that stands out to me the most. Other than tracking down a waiter and saying, this is going to be the weirdest request you're ever going to get. Can I just get some carrots, please? But it's incredible. They seriously take every single detail into consideration to make sure that you're going to make sure to have the best experience possible.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is like even at lunch, like obviously when we arrive, we're coming around lunchtime and it's more buffet style, and even at breakfast, they would bring us things out if we couldn't eat what was there. And you could always like check with them. There was always like someone there that you could ask questions to, and then they could always bring you something out, because I know that a few times they've brought you separate things out for breakfast and lunch also.
Yeah, they can, because it is served buffet style in like little individual portions. You can, if there's say like a salad that has meat on it or tomatoes on it, they'll make you your own little portion of that, and that's really nice to know that there's always an option that is still very in universe. So it's cool.
Yes. And I will say, so I have a shellfish allergy. And I get a little nervous because it's even like to the touch. If someone touches like shellfish and then touches me, I can have a reaction. So I was a little nervous because like obviously Mary was sitting next to me on one side, and then there was like another table to my other side. And the girl that was sitting on the other side of me at the other table, she did not want the shrimp either. So that was the only thing that I was like a little concerned about. But other than that, like they would have brought you anything. If they might have different names, they might have different colors, but it is very common food. And I'm a super picky eater. Like I don't like anything unusual or things like that. And I eat everything. And those roasted vegetables are like an entire reason to go back just on Starcruise.
I was dreaming about them since March, and I wouldn't shut up about them until October, and then I'm still on a roasted vegetable kick since we've gotten home from our voyage. They're so good.
I was a big fan of the space potatoes that came out. a plate of potatoes plopped down, and the waitress is like, and space potatoes, which took me like back. I was like, oh, they call it potatoes too.
Nice, not tubers. Yeah. But they weren't just like regular potatoes. They were like small fingerling potatoes, and they were purple ones, and regular potatoes as well. So still a little bit in universe.
Yes. And I think what is a little surprising that isn't mentioned as much is that even though there's like food going on in the dining room, in the Sublight Lounge, you can also order food that's included at any time. And they have stuff in there during breakfast time that's just, grab and go. And then just in the atrium, they have snacks going on all the time. And honestly, if you ask for something, they're going to give it to you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like, store food and bring it back to your room and like, oh, we need that for later. Like you just ask and there's food.
There's coffee always, like iced coffees whenever you ask for them.
Which is something that they didn't do back in March, or weren't able to do easily back in March. They would bring us like espresso and almond milk, but for some reason they couldn't quite figure out how to do the iced coffee thing. I don't know.
They learned.
They got a nice machine.
Like enough people have a caffeine addiction that we need to figure this one out.
Yes. So that's good. All right. So now we're moving on to our favorite part. And I've changed my mind about 4 times since we started planning it and since we started talking. So I get to go last. So aren't I lucky? Does anyone want to go first, or should I just go in our order?
I'll talk first
Megan,
about
you go.
my favorite part, especially since I got this question asked me earlier today. My favorite part was going into it. We had come up with backstories. Mine was that I was a stylist from Coruscant, so I worked with the senators, and that little bit of information strung through 2 days, and eventually I was part of a key storyline, and it was because my cover worked with the story, and I actively tried to stay neutral with all the characters because I wanted to observe and I wanted to really take in everything I could. And I knew when you got into a storyline, like as a Star Wars fan, I was really going to get into it. So I took a step back, and just little bits of information that cast members got really like made the experience 100 times better. And I wasn't expecting that when I decided to stay neutral, that I would still be sucked into a little story here and there.
Yeah, I think that is very surprising and like just so cool that like such a tiny thing that you decide before you're going, that can make all the difference in the world.
And you didn't know much of the storyline, right, Meg? You went in relatively spoiler-free.
I knew that I knew which characters were going to show up, except for the one that made me cry, because I didn't know that was going to show up, and I wept like a little baby. Thankfully, Meredith.
It's okay, we both did.
And started rubbing my back, like just tears streaming down our face.
It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Obviously, didn't know that character was going to be there, but everyone else, I could tell who was a character on the ship, which was a little
unlike me.
yeah. You just thought we just like made a friend with a lone traveler. But like none of the story, like I didn't, even when I was in the story, I didn't really comprehend what was happening until Meredith was like, oh my God, it's so cool that just happened. And I was like, wait, that doesn't happen to everyone.
Yeah.
But my story, like being like I was acting like I was a character on an actual cruise. So every time someone talked to me, I was like, whoa, I'm just on a cruise. Like I'm just trying to have a good time, like actively trying to like dance away from people, like trying to just be like a party girl on a cruise. And it really like played up into the storyline.
Yes, that definitely It did. And just like every fashion consultant out there, you packed like you were ready for any type of situation also.
Oh yeah,
Even
ready
a
to go
picnic.
anywhere. Oh, I'm our little Batu picnic in the afternoon.
It's fantastic.
Perfect. All right, Mary, what was your favorite part?
Oh, that's hard. That is very hard. I loved the cast member interaction. I just, what Megan was talking about, how she really was like sucked into the storyline. And Meredith, too, when you were playing with one of the characters. And if you didn't know, and if you go back and you look at our pictures, you would think that Meredith was one of the cast members. If you didn't know, because you had that thing. And I think Megan had that same experience because you both really got sucked in, and it was just fun getting to watch that. I didn't get as sucked in, but to see you all, I think other people watching might have thought that Meredith and Megan were both in the skit, that they were one of it, because one of the cast members, I don't think it takes that long to learn, but the second day, he's a cast member. But I think people that were watching the interaction might have thought that you two were also a cast member, just because that there was just that dynamic. Your personalities meshed, and whether it's "Hey Harmon, what are you doing?" or this or that, or "Party girl, woohoo!" I think that other people watching us might not have thought that you were really just on the cruise, because you really developed your characters. So that was interesting to watch. I just the cast members, I was from the first one, Jake, just the relationships we formed with them. One of you were saying earlier how I did not realize, because when I went on the soft cruise, that didn't happen. So I had no idea that you would keep seeing the same cast members time and time again, that it wasn't a one and done. It was like you're seeing Jake here, and then you're with Jake again. And they just kept coming through. And I didn't realize that after being on the soft opening. And so, yeah, that was really incredible. And I think you could have been a part of it and not been a huge Star Wars fan like Lauren. I don't think just because you don't know Star Wars that you're not going to have a great time.
Yeah, and I think Mary and I talked about this before, that, it was even fun for us because how much, like, just watching Meredith and Megan have so much fun.
Yes. Oh my
It
God.
just made it better, but it made it better for like other people too.
Me
Like,
too. Yeah.
so like people getting into their parts helps people who are not as outgoing, or like me, like half the time I was like, I thought that was not a cast member. So it took me a long time to figure that out. And so I think, that, you get to be yourself, and you get to do your comfort level also.
Yes.
And it's enjoyable no matter which way you do it. So, yeah, but
Yeah.
the cast, amazing.
I definitely resonate with what you just said, because contrary to how you three met me, I am an introvert. I'm not always like that. I do like my solitude, and like I don't always heckle cast members named Harmon who are working for the First Order. But just like all of the little interactions that add up throughout the entire 2.5-day experience are just incredible, down to talking with Jake at the terminal before we even got on. Just, he had a backstory, and he talked with us for 15 minutes and made us feel like we were truly about to board a luxury cruise, down to figuring out that Sandro and I were essentially wearing the same costume. So we did the Spider-Man meme where we both just stood there and pointed at each other. Just those, like, all of those little interactions throughout the entire trip. Yes, there's the big key story elements that make Meg and Meredith bawl their eyes out, but then there's the little ones that you're sitting in the sublight lounge sharing a drink, and then Gaia walks by and the captain walks by, and you just have those little one-off moments are just, it's cheesy, but just so magical and so meaningful. So
Yeah. I think that no matter, like, we all had different levels of excitement for going, and obviously our love of Star Wars, and yet we can still all enjoy it. I think I'm going to kind of echo Mary in talking about the cast members, because I didn't know, I knew that there were going to be characters, but I didn't realize that the non-character cast members or non-actors, I don't know how to say it. I had no idea how much of a role they would play and how much we would interact with them and talk with them. And like, they're people that, like, I'm like, well, I only want to go on a cruise though if they're working that time, you know? Like, those are the people, like, it's a lot like if you go on a Disney Cruise Line and there you have specific people at your table to wait on you each night. There are people that request to come back specifically when they're working. And I think if we could have the same people that we had this time, and I know, Meredith, you had people that you had previous times that you got to see, and like, you feel like family. It's like, oh my gosh, hi, you're here. Oh, now you're here. Oh, did you, like, this is what we're doing. And like you want to seek them out, like you want to talk to them. Like, that's how good they are at like making you feel like at home, and like this is like a luxury experience. Like, they are there to help you, but like they want to know you too. And I think that that's very different. Like, if you're going to a regular like Disney World resort, you know, you might have one interaction like that throughout your whole trip. But this was like every time you interacted with a cast member, like you wanted to make sure you remembered their name. You wanted to, know them. And even when this could happen to anyone, but when we were in Hollywood Studios and taking a picture, we had the best photographer in the entire world. And I want to say her name is Lupa or Lula. I can't remember.
Something
I
like
have it
that.
written down somewhere and I don't.
Yeah.
But she's from Puerto Rico. I actually have previously had her, and she did the most amazing pictures with my son and I earlier this year. And I was like shocked when I got her again. And she did amazing pictures.
And then we went back.
Yeah.
We ended up going, when we went back, we were going to take pictures, and she was like going backstage, like ready to clock out. And she turned around and was like, nope, we're going to go take more pictures together, and like found a couple really cool spots, and it was fun. She's incredible.
Yeah, she was almost like our fairy godmother on
Yes.
our like too, because we came out of the shuttle and she was right there. And then Meredith and I were like, oh, let's go to Endor. So we walked out of Galaxy's Edge and like took some photos around. And as we were walking back into Galaxy's Edge, she was there. And she was like, oh, I'm here to take your photo again. And it was honestly some of the best photos that I have ever taken in Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, because she was the one who took the pictures of all of us, but then took pictures individually, and then posed different. We all had little, like, you had your droid and you had baby, and I had Chopper, and like she posed us all with those. Like, she took so much time to make sure that we had really good pictures. I think I wrote a cast compliment for her twice because she was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is amazing. I have written both times I had her this year. I wrote a cast compliment, and both times I took a picture with her. So that's what I think is even funnier, because we do have a picture that we all took with her, because like, you like have to remember. I don't think I've ever taken so many pictures with cast members before in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like,
many.
I just like, I felt like I knew everyone on that cruise.
Even when we went shopping and Megan was shopping a little bit, even the cast member that was checking us out, as you start talking to them, and she's like, oh, when you're on this planet, do you like to collect pins? And you're like, yes, I like to collect pins. Well, I have some special out of this world pins, and she's showing you the pins. So I have pictures with the cast member who sold me my pins, just because all the cast members, they just really, they go above and beyond.
Yeah, one of my favorite
I
parts
follow.
too is the tags like in Disney World where it says their name and where they're from on the Starcruiser, they're all in universe. So like my backstory being from Coruscant, when I would walk up to people like Jake, who is from Coruscant, and I ask, oh, what level? And they can like interact back and forth with someone who's really into Star Wars, was like so enjoyable for me, and I'm sure Meredith. And then eventually you guys were noticing it as well, like even, from Naboo and from, all the other, so like that, a little extra that got us chatting more than usual with cast members, I think, which made it more special. And then they would come back and we like, it was a lot of like volleying, and it stems off of like little details like Star Wars planets on their name tags.
Yes. Meredith, did you want to add anything?
No, Meg basically stole my thought, which is perfect, and I absolutely love it.
Okay. Well, does anyone have any last thoughts that they want to leave anyone with about Starcruiser? Besides, we all agree you definitely should go on. It's for everyone, and you can definitely go multiple times.
Yes.
At least 3 times.
I would like to like just touch upon like the like packing, like what you should wear. Like you don't have to go in a full cosplay. Like a lot of my outfits came from like H&M. I know a lot of people have shopped like Zara and like Forever 21 going on. So you don't have to spend a ton of money, and you can kind of just like play into like more of a Disney bound of Star Wars. So you pick a character you like, and I know all of us did that. And we kind of stemmed off of a character's aesthetic and had like clothes from our closets that we were able to wear. And it wasn't a full costume that, spent weeks preparing, since we only had 2 weeks to get ready.
Was it even 2 weeks? Was it less than 2 weeks? I don't even know.
I had 2 weeks in between two Disney trips, and I found out as I was leaving in September, and we went back in October 2 weeks later. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I definitely would say if I had more time, like that's, first of all, because of the quickness and the flight that I was able to get, I could only do a carry-on. So I had limited space to begin with, but some of my orders didn't come in till after I even returned from Starcruiser. So I definitely I will, next time I go, I'm planning more. But like I only bought one thing for our whole cruise besides our ID. Everything else I had was in my closet, or I could borrow from like one of my friends. So it wasn't like you have to go and spend all this money like Megan is saying. Like you can make it work with a lot of the stuff you have. And that's the advice Meredith had given us when we first found out we were going.
And she was kind enough to say, just throw everything in your suitcase. I'll help you get dressed. I'll pick out your costumes, which she did. Thank you. Because
it's like Star Wars is very like neutral colored base for if you're just kind of going background character. If you're going if you know exactly what you want, go for that. But if you don't, go neutrals, and then you can just layer and you're good. Echoing what you guys said, with both trips, I bought a vest and a belt, and that was everything that I bought. So you'd be very surprised at what you can find in your closet. That'll work.
Very cool. All right. Well, that will wrap up our show today. So I want to thank Mary, Megan, and Meredith. And yes, I stick out. My name starts with an L. But again, the link is below for Carry On the Magic, where you can book an appointment with Mary, Megan, Meredith. Oh my gosh. Mary, Megan, Meredith, or myself. Can't do that very well. Or you could just, if you want to email me at lauren@carryonthemagic, I can get you to the correct person. And we all are full Star Cruiser supporters and hope that a lot of you will consider going on one because they are amazing and we all can't wait to get back on one again. So thank you very much, ladies, and
you.
everyone. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.